Hey guys, and welcome to episode 9 of the Trinisphere. Today we'll be covering the Commander Precon League that our group participates in every year, coinciding with the release of the Commander product. We are brought to you by TapTop.net, and I am Shannon, the Timmy, and I'm joined by...
Adam, the Johnny.
Ryan? Oh, that's right, this is a Champions-only podcast.
Oh, so is it the Trinisphere, or are we in the Binosphere?
We're down to the Biosphere.
The Biosphere,
yeah.
Biosphere, gotcha.
All right. So today we'll be covering the concept behind founding the Precon League, the rules that we use to govern our league, and the previous strategies we employed to make it to the top. So one of the big reasons that we created the Commander Precon League was a way to get newer players into playing Commanders. So this is something that you can bring to your play group, your local game shop, get a couple people involved, and kind of form your own EDH group. This is a great way to get new people involved. All right, so first off, let's talk about the concept behind the Precon League. Like I mentioned a little bit earlier, the reason we came up with this league was that we felt that our group was entering the arms race of spending money like crazy. And we had all these new EDH players at the local game shop, and they all wanted to play EDH with us, but they felt completely turned off to the fact that they stood no chance. So kind of our middle ground was, hey, these Precon sets that come out, let's just play with those straight out of the box. And then we can show them some of our deck building strategies on a slowly week-by-week basis. So we're slowly evolving our EDH decks along, and they can kind of witness the evolution as it goes. And they can maybe, learn some tips and also stand, kind of a chance off the bat.
Yeah, I mean, this was in the batch that had Marith, I guess the Shard commanders?
Yeah, you're right.
Because Marith is Naya. Yeah, and this was actually when I was getting back into the game. I had one kind of cobbled together EDH deck. And some of the decks that the group that I was walking into, which Shannon was a part of at the time, were a little on the intimidating side for somebody who was just getting back into the game. So this was a really nice opportunity for me.
So the basic concept is you start with the original Precon out of the box and you play week 1. And we use a scoring system. We use a point system. And then that helps, players who do lose to feel like they have a chance in the league. And then each week after the first one, we allow you to modify 5 cards in the Precon. So on week number 2, you can have 5 cards changed. And then on week 3, you can have up to 10 cards changed. So that allows a slow creeping evolution so players can make strategic choices as to what they want to change off the bat, and as well as witness the evolution of each other's decks.
Yep. And I think after, about 6 weeks, we kind of make it a little bit more wide open. And you can choose to do that or not, But we do open it up so that you can see the full evolution of that deck if that's what your play group wants.
So one of the reasons that we use a point system, like I said, was that it helps people, even when they lose, still feel like they have a chance. It's not just a simple, when you're playing in a 4-man pod, to be the only winner. It makes it a little more casual, a little more interesting, a little more fun, and it makes for some more unique deck design choices. So the previous rule set that we've been using for a long time was actually based off of Commander Versus a couple of seasons ago, and we kind of stuck with it while theirs has evolved. So our rule set goes: you score 1 point for earning First Blood, which is hitting another player with combat damage the first time in a pod. You also get 1 point for saving a player from elimination, and that one's up to a bit of...
It's a bit of interpretation, but usually, if you fog when they're about to take lethal.
Yeah, that one usually requires a little bit of arguing, but... Then, beyond that, you have your basic scoring, which is if you're in first place in a 4-man pod, you get 4 points. If you are in second place in a 4-man pod, you get 3 points. And if you are in third place, you get 2. And if you're in last place, you get 1. So we also modified our rules because sometimes we have 3-man pods. So if you're in a 3-man pod, first gets 4, second gets 3, and last gets 1. So that 2-point slot is basically just removed from the table. So we have a couple of negative point modifiers, which includes -1 for extra turns for each turn after the first. So if you time warp, you're okay, but if you time stretch, you get in a -1. And then if you start chaining them, your points are going to get in the negative. You get a -1 for comboing off and killing everyone in the pod at the same time. So that just basically prevents players from going, ham on the first couple turns. As long as they kill one person, then they're capable of killing the remaining people in their pod at once. Also, I do believe we decided that was on the same turn. So if you can kill someone in main phase 1 and then try and go to combat and then kill people in main phase 2, it still counts as a -1. The big one that we really picked up on was a -1 for searching for every 30 seconds you're searching. And this is just simply to speed the game up.
And it's been helpful and a point of argument at the same time.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I do believe back when I was the subject of people counting, I was using a Firemind's Foresight, which in my opinion should be allowed 1 minute and 30 seconds. It's three tutors, but they gave me 30.
I don't believe that. I believe that's how they do it on Commander Versus. Is when you have multiple searches, you still have 30 seconds. So.
Yeah, I think so. So we have a little caveat to this rule, which is we don't want to be jerks about it. So if you announce what you're searching for and it's the end of your turn and the rest of us can continue playing our game, then we stop counting. It's only if you're making the entire pod wait and they need to see what you're getting and you don't know what you're getting, or you're going to do something after you get it, everyone's having to wait. So that's when we start counting and we want you to speed it up. We also made the rule that if ever for some reason you all tie and check off a couple of these categories at once, say one person kills the rest of the people in his pod, you simply tally up all their scores, which would be like last, and then third place, and then second place, and then they divide them evenly amongst themselves. So it's an easy way to continue getting points and not feel like certain edge cases rob people of their possible points.
Yeah. And honestly, some of these have been debated as to the point values and things like that. The kill everyone at once, for example, like I get to divide all those points among 3 players, but I only get dinged for 1. Okay, I'll take the 3 points and move on.
Deal. Yep. Yep. Obviously, the spikes tend to enjoy more the getting high points for simply winning their pod, but we wanted to reward the Timmies and the Johnnies for having some kind of unique play styles. Those save a player from eliminations come up as a large point netting rule set. So moving on, we can talk about what Commander Versus currently uses now. And I don't know if you guys watch their videos. They're great at there. It's really fun to watch them play EDH. One of my favorite shows to watch. They do some pretty unique stuff. So their current rule set this season goes, they play in a 4-man pod, so you get 4, 3, 2, or 1 points, depending on your order of elimination. They have the first blood rule, getting 1 point for that. They have a 1 point for saving players from elimination, just like we do. They also have 2 unique ones that we don't have, which we may adopt. Includes 1 extra point for killing someone with commander damage, 1 extra point for casting their commander 4 or more times in a single game.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not personally feeling the 4 or more times in a single game, especially when it comes to this league, because some of these commanders that have already been previewed, and we're not going to go into them, they're all around the internet, are really high casting costs.
It's not going to happen
casting them 4 times is not going to happen often. But, I mean, I could see the general damage kill because that's just rewarding a very specific strat.
Yeah.
So.
Yep. They also have a couple of negative modifiers, including, like us, killing everyone at the same time and searching. For every 30 seconds you're searching, you get a -1 point. They also have 2 other unique ones, including attacking the person in last place as your first attack for the game, which is pretty funny. If you watch that show, they dumpster all over certain people sometimes. So they had to make a rule. I do believe it had somebody's name as the rule originally, but
yes.
They also have a -1 point for never casting their commander, which is pretty neat too. So you can't just have a
representative.
Yep.
But my question would be, how does that work in, like, for our last league, for example, I switched over to partners, and so
-0.5 point.
-0.5 point? That's what we're going with?
Yep. I do believe we actually started getting half points at some point when you started dividing up, like, players both losing the game at the same time and getting last place. All right. There's also a bunch of other rule sets you could play with your league, and it's a good way to incentivize people who are losing to not just simply quit your league. They can feel like they stand a chance. You can have a leaderboard, and you can, pay out to the top people, or you can have prizes and that kind of thing. It keeps people involved and invested longer in a league. One thing you get is league fatigue. Whenever people feel like they don't have a chance, or not doing well in the first couple of weeks, they simply just stop playing, and the league kind of falls apart. So points are a great way to keep people invested and keep people kind of brewing some interesting decks. So there are a bunch of other rule sets out there for points, and including, I believe there's one from Tolarian Community College came up with a pretty extensive one.
Yeah, I don't know that he was the origin of it, but he definitely put it out there, and I think that he referenced it. I'll put a link to his video in the show notes. But it had a lot going on. What was it, like 105, 150 cards?
Yeah, it was a huge list.
Right, and basically you would have a set in the middle of the table for everybody, set positive and negative points that were chosen at random, and then everybody also got cards that were their own personal like negative effects.
Yeah, it's kind of like a modifier.
Right. And then there was a whole nother set of cards that we didn't even play with that modified and gave points for if you were legacy legal, or if you were modern legal, or if you were extended legal. Not that that means anything anymore, you know. Yeah. So we didn't even play with those. Those were the blue cards in the scenario. And then I think each player also got a positive card. So you got like a black card and a white card, and then the green cards and red cards were in the middle for everybody to get point values off of.
Right.
So it was very elaborate. I enjoyed it, but at the same time, like there's a lot to put into it. But it's fun. So yeah, definitely check that out also.
Yeah. I think the one thing that I thought was pretty unique about it was that you don't simply have the same rule set every time. It's a random set of rules doled out to people each time you play. So no two games kind of play the same. And you can get a different set of cards for yourself that you kind of like goals for you to achieve. I do believe there was one card that says like you can't tutor. Right. You can no longer tutor. You can't search your library, but you start the game with an additional 2 victory points or whatever already off the bat. So they had really unique modifiers like that going into the game. So you can check that out. They're pretty unique. They were a little too hardcore for us. I think we're at the point now where we kind of want to see our deck shine, and we don't need those kind of crazy you can't do certain things.
Yeah, I mean, the one positive that it did bring, I thought, was it's a point system that you can't farm.
Yep.
Because you
can't build a deck to just check off boxes.
Exactly. You know, in this and any point system, if it's a standard point system, you know, you've got these 10 things, people can build their decks to fit those and reduce the negative points they get and increase the positive points they get. You know, play all the Mazavith and Fog and stuff like that to save people from elimination. Yeah. So it avoids that, but...
And Precon is another way to kind of avoid that. We have tried point systems actually with generic EDH several times at local game shops. And usually if you offer prizes and you have a checklist of points, you will get players coming in, you know, taking infinite turns so they can check off as many points as they can. I would warn everyone against trying to implement a league at a shop with point systems and prizes at the same time. We tried it twice. It failed both times at our local game shop. It was just too much gaming of the system. Really hard to deal with when you incentivize them with money. So.
Imagine that. You take a casual game and you turn it competitive, and all of a sudden it gets out of hand. It's crazy.
Yep. Classic EDH competitiveness. All right. So a recap of our previous Commander Precon leagues. We've been playing it for a couple of years, we really started scoring points, and we had an official trophy for the last 2 years.
Maybe I'll throw a link to that pic in the show notes.
Oh, will you? Will you now?
So since I have access to the trophy.
So last year, I guess it turns out that the Trinisphere resident Johnny did manage to defeat 12 people.
Yeah, that happened.
Yeah. And what deck were you piloting?
Atraxa.
Oh, okay. Well, that kind of explains a bit. But I don't believe you ended with Atraxa, did you?
I did not. I ended with a Cheese Stands Alone using partners deck.
Yes, I do believe he subtly asked if Cheese Stand Alone would be okay. We all looked at the card. We said, sure, go for it, buddy. And then you proceeded to win a bunch of games with it.
Yes, that happened.
So that was the 2016 champion was Adam. And then the 2015... champion was yours truly, Timmy Shannon. Yes. I was piloting the Mizzix deck. Turns out that deck was pretty busted.
Yeah.
I do believe it came down to me and another Mizzix player just trying to out-counter each other for the final couple points to come out on top.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I didn't see that coming going into it. I honestly thought Marin was going to be the strongest, but Mizzix is pretty darn good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So for 2016, the Precons were the 4-color commanders. So obviously you went with Atraxa. I made an early on vow to eschew green because I thought it was one of the better colors in EDH. But then they started revealing that Brea was the non-green 4-color, and I'm like, nah, I don't want to play that. That's just like Combosville.
Yeah.
It seemed like, I mean, everyone can name all the cards in your deck just by looking at what Brea does. So I decided to instead go with the fan non-favorite, which was Saskia.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that was
not so good.
Miserable.
Yeah.
I think everyone was like, wow, Shannon is complaining a lot this season.
Yeah. I mean, Atraxa, like, honestly, I chose Atraxa. I got a lot of flack for winning because I constantly said, like, I don't really care. Because I don't care about competitiveness, and I'll come out and, you know, but I don't try to lose either. Like, I try to win with what I have. I chose Atraxa. like 4 days before it was spoiled because
Yep.
I was on another podcast and they were like, hey, everybody pick one. And I was like, I want the one without red. And then Atraxa was spoiled and I was like, well, I'm
Deal.
probably winning.
Deal.
Yeah. So I turned it into like, an Enchantress deck with the main win con of Baron Glory and the cheese stands alone. But it got there.
Yeah. And I remember one of the things that I felt like Saskia was kind of underpowered was that as a 3/4, even with haste, she could not actually swing through any other commander.
Yeah, no.
Every other commander, if resolved, she couldn't attack anymore. And Atraxa especially curb stomped her and gained some life while doing it. So it felt like she was a little underwhelming. So Yidris was a really cool commander, but a lot of people ended up switching to Vile Smasher Thrasios pretty quick, and those were pretty cool decks.
Yeah.
I can't even remember the name, so I called them K and T, which was the group hug non-black
Kineas
deck.
and Tiro, yeah.
Yeah, they were super popular in our group. Of the 12 players,
Oh my
I think,
God.
I think
We had
close to
3 or
6.
4? No.
I think at one point it was 6. We had to get people to shuffle around. Like, come on, guys, can we not all play group hug?
Yeah.
And a lot of Brave the Sands exchanging life totals shenanigans going on.
Yeah, there was that and Reverse the Sands.
Is that what it is?
Yeah, and the terrain.
No, treacherous terrain.
Treacherous terrain.
Yeah,
Those
it's
were the win cons.
You guys managed to play like 30 extra lands this game. Now everyone takes 30 extra damage.
Yeah.
All right. So 2015, the one that I managed to win, included the experience-based commanders. So you had Mizzix who got experience counters whenever you cast a spell that cost more than the number of experience counters you already had.
Something like that.
Something like that. And then he also discounted your instants and sorceries for every experience counter. So your X spells started getting cheaper and cheaper. Some of your spells were costing close to nothing, and you can buy them back. It was a crazy deck.
Yeah.
Which one were you running back then?
Columny.
Oh, really? Yeah.
Yeah. Not so good. Not so good. I mean, I didn't do horribly with it. Like I was somewhere in the middle of the pack, but Giant Tribal wasn't really getting there, or
No.
whatever that deck was trying to be. Like it had
Yeah.
half Giant Tribal, half nonsense. Like Boros, unfortunately, has a tough time. I was okay with being the Boros guy because not a lot of people had picked it, so I just grabbed
I think you might have been the only Calamity player at the time.
I might have been. I mean, I was trying to diversify the field a little bit, you know.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I would have gone with Marin.
Yeah, we had a good amount of Marin players that year.
Yeah.
A couple of Mizzix. I think there was you might have been the only Calamity, and there might have been only one Daxos as well.
There was only one or two Daxos, and I think there was only one Simic.
Oh yeah, Zuri Claw Progress.
Yeah.
I think there might have been one or two, but yeah, I think a lot of people focused in on Marin. Marin being a pretty popular one.
Marin was very strong, but not strong enough apparently.
Yeah. Okay, so this year, pretty stoked for tribal. So we'll see how it goes. We haven't actually locked in our picks just yet, and there only being 4 of them, we're gonna have a lot of duplicate players. So it'll be a pretty interesting go of it this year. We'll see who comes out on top. Maybe it'll be Ryan, and maybe he can join us next time we do a championship podcast.
That's true. That would be nice.
So next up, we can talk about some of the strategies we used going in, playing a Precon, and then getting that access to 5 changes. Adam, so what do you usually do when you get your Precon? You play it the first week, you get a little bit of analysis to see how it plays and against some of them. What do you look for to change in week number 2?
Yeah, so I generally try to plan out the entire deck. So I look at the deck, I look at what I actually want it to do by the end of the whole thing, so that I'm not just like randomly switching out cards of packages between, weeks. And then I start breaking the whole deck down into packages of 5 cards. If I'm like, oh, you know what? To get there, I need to put in my WinCon package. But before I put in my WinCon package, it really needs a little bit more ramp. So I'm going to throw in a ramp package. Then maybe I throw in a removal package. Then I'm happy with the rest of the deck, and I can start throwing in those new WinCon packages if they need to be in there. And I try to make sure that all of them are tweaked at the same time. I never touch lands until the very end.
Right, yeah.
Because they've given us decent. I mean, those four color decks.
I was surprised.
Did fine, yeah.
I was surprised. I was
Yeah.
a big skeptic, but the basic land cycling and stuff like that.
Right. I mean, especially with the inexpensive lands that they ended up putting in there. You know, we didn't have like the good filter lands. We didn't have any fetches.
It was a bit.
That.
It might have been a bit slower, but I do believe a lot of times people were casting a 4-color commander on turn 4 with a budget mana base, which
Generally speaking,
usually pretty tough to do.
Yeah, that was
even with
that
the
was
expensive
impressive.
mana
Yeah.
base. Yeah. So So one of my strategies for 5-color, I mean, you said you're planning out almost your entire deck, and that is kind of funny because I'm almost the exact opposite. So yeah, I am almost going into it hot week to week. Basically, in week 1, I'm doing a quick analysis to see the weaknesses of the deck as it stands alone, and then also the strengths of other people's decks, and seeing how to try and counter those. So usually going into the first set of changes in week number 2, I am, if there's a grievous shortcoming in my deck, usually probably in the category of removal. It may be getting a boost in removal, but generally speaking, I am trying to put some win cons into my deck. Generally, these don't really come with win cons. You're supposed to kind of like dirtle until somebody out-dirtles another person. So I'm looking for a way to kind of accelerate the deck's synergy to a winning point. That's usually my week 1. It's going to be some combination, maybe 3 win con, what I would consider a win condition type card, and 2 maybe removal. And then going from there, I am, and this is a lot how I normally build my decks. I don't ever feel like I can write down a list of cards and feel like it's done. I must play it, I must analyze it, and I must see it compete against others, and I must change it nonstop. So going on from week 2 to week 3 and 4 and 5, I'm simply looking at how it's performing, reanalyzing its weaknesses, and trying to buff up kind of its weak points. And I'm also keeping an eye on what other people are doing. Not like hard countering their plays, but seeing how they're analyzing their decks, and seeing if in the end, in week 6, I will be completely swamped by what their deck is doing.
Right.
Also, I am not averse to doing quick changes. Like if you only get 5 changes in week 2, I'll do 5 changes that are maybe just straight removal. And then in week 3, when you have 10 changes, taking all that removal out and putting a completely different 10-card package in there. So sometimes I like switching my changes from round to round because some packages, they just simply can't work at 5. Some work better at 10. When you, like you're saying, add ramp in to get those better cards firing on all cylinders. So there's a lot of other strategies. I know people, like you said, I don't do lands either. Basically until we finally open it up.
Yeah, some people go straight after.
Yeah, some people go straight to lands. They want 5 expensive lands in there. I know. I'm pretty sure some people we have a couple people in our group who will probably always slate in a Gaia's Cradle.
And Gaia's
Cradle. They'll always put a
right.
Gaia's Cradle in if their deck has any number of creatures in it.
Right.
And then you have other people who basically focus on crazy win cons, and then you have the spikes who generally are like, oh, I'm in Y, I'm going to put Elish Norn. I mean, that seems like a good card to probably always have. Right. So you have those good stuff kind of changes in week 2, but it's really interesting to see players and their strategies for evolving. It's definitely one of the biggest, most interesting parts of Precon, something that I would stress if you guys ever consider playing Precon. You want to do it because you want to see how people build their decks over a span of time.
Yeah, I mean, I actually slightly envy and sometimes push myself to try and be a little bit more like your plan, where you actually analyze between rounds. I'm just horrible about doing it. I can see what the issues are with my deck, but I have too much dedication to a list.
Yeah.
With all of my decks, 35 or whatever. I just write them down and I never change them for whatever reason.
I remember you and I, we kind of started the whole, I think at the time it was the 27, but then it became the 32 list. 32 and I kind of stalled out around the 18 area. I kept going back and changing decks that I didn't really like, and I kept tweaking decks. And you're like, done. I finished all. And I'm like, what? And you're like, yeah, I have 32 lists. And I'm like, how did you even do that? I can't do that. I can't just write a list and be like, I'm pretty confident in this list. I'm never confident in my list until they played at least a dozen games.
That's what I usually do for I try to, and I do it in deck building in general, is I kind of build it in a bubble, and I don't spend enough time revisiting it. No. After it's lost a ton.
Well, let me tell you, if you keep revisiting your decks, like a new set comes out and you're like, okay, what is this? What deck does this card work in? You spend your entire time just maintaining your list.
Exactly.
But anyways, that is some of the strategies that we employ for our 5 change per week Precon. It's a lot of fun, guys. I would highly recommend it. The point system you can do without, you can do it with, depending on how casual or competitive your group is. But it definitely puts a hamper on people outspending each other. And it makes people kind of brew with restriction, which is always a lot of fun.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So we can quickly cover our thoughts on the up-and-coming Tribal League.
Yeah. So
what are your thoughts, buddy? What are your thoughts?
So we're only we're only a couple days into previews, and like I said, we're not really gonna cover those too much until the next show, and we actually talk about our decks. So I don't think we've chosen what our decks are gonna be yet. I am also on another podcast where I have to choose one.
Already?
And they're doing them randomly. So
that's kind of cool.
So I'm gonna be stuck with whatever I'm stuck with for both. So I don't know. But we do know at this point definitively we have cats, wizards, dragons, and
vampires.
Mardu vampires. That's right. I am hype on all of it. Like, I like tribal. It's fun. You
do love your tribal.
Yeah. The tribal druids for the win. Yeah, I mean, I'm pretty excited. I would say that I'm most excited to see cats in action. I think it was a really cool pick for them to do cats. I'm pretty hype on them. The dragon one, I'm only interested once I see the support package. It's a 5-color deck, 5-color precon, probably with similar support that it got in the last set with the 4-color commanders. Some of those dragons might be super broken, but I'm not, And then I think Grixis Wizards is just going to be control, right?
Right, yeah.
And then we have Mardu Vampires probably aggro.
Yeah.
Nice opportunity for a few decent reprints, I would hope.
Yeah, and some pretty. I know a lot of speculation that we're going to be seeing just from the art, that we're going to see some cards that we know from lore and history of Magic actually making an appearance. Could always hope for like an Urza Wizard. Yeah, couldn't we? That'd be so sweet. Probably had to be a Planeswalker though. Yeah, but
you mean the God Wizard?
Yeah.
Yeah. Cats also looks like it has a kind of Voltron-y sub theme.
Yeah. Yep, so we could probably get in there and clock some players from serious damage.
Right, exactly. So actually, if we added a rule, like we were talking about earlier, if we added a rule that it was dead by commander damage, then cats might earn some points there.
I mean, that's fair because, control style decks can generally net that whole saving a player from death thing because they have so many instants and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So going on to next week, we'll be hopefully opening, or we'll have a full set of spoilers by then. So we'll at least be able to talk about, the decks that we're going to choose and maybe our thoughts on where we're going to take them during our 6-week-long Precon League.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we'll let you know what the rest of our group chooses and some of their thoughts on how they're going to build theirs. And overall, we're just going to be super stoked. This is our favorite league that we do every year. Yeah. We have a trophy. Adam will probably send you a link, and then hopefully we'll be able to steal it back from him and bring it back to its rightful place.
We will see.
Rightful place. Nikki Bolas.
Yeah, I don't know. We'll see.
Yep. All right, guys, that wraps up episode 9, which is a quick overview of how we're going to be running our Commander Precon League. I encourage you guys to also run your Precon Leagues. It's a ton of fun. Thanks again to our sponsor, tappedout.net, where you can find all of our deck lists. And as we evolve our Commander Precon deck lists, we'll be posting them up there as well for you guys to check out. You can also find us on YouTube. You can like, share, and subscribe. If you click that bell icon, you'll get new notifications when our episodes drop. And coming soon, we may be doing some giveaways for our subscribers.
Very nice.
Saucy. You can also find us on the web at thetrinisphere.com. You can follow us on Facebook and Twitter. You can follow Adam the Johnny on Twitter at Squire9999 and tapped out as Squire1. Big difference. Big delta there. You can find Shannon, myself, the Timmy, on Twitter and tapped out as Nikki Bolas. I'm trying to make it easier on our listeners.
I understand. Yeah. Sorry about that.
And he whose name shall not be spoken, the Spike, you can be found on Twitter at Snapmaster and on tapped out as I'm Ryan Reese. Oh, damn it.
You kind of said his name.
I said his name, didn't I? All right, guys. That wraps it all up. So as always, it's not about winning. It's about sending a message.